A few words on the dramatic situation in Valencia and across Spain. What we are seeing is devastating. Entire villages are covered with mud, people seeking refuge on trees and cars swept away by the fury of the waters. Tens of people have lost their lives. Thousands are displaced. And therefore our thoughts are with the victims and with the families and their friends, but also with the rescue teams. The rescue teams are working tirelessly to bring as many as possible to safety. And Europe is ready to help. We have activated our Copernicus satellite system to help coordinate the rescue teams. And we have already offered to activate our civil protection mechanism. Europa está lista para ayudar. In just a few months, floods have hit Central and Eastern Europe, Italy, and now Spain. This is the dramatic reality of climate change. And we must prepare to deal with it all across our union and with all tools at our disposal. And this leads me to the topic of today. Dear Sauli Niinistö, 7 months ago, together with the HRVP, I asked you to write a report on how to enhance Europe's civilian and defense preparedness and readiness. And I think nobody's better equipped than you to take stock of current challenges and pave the way for a union that is better prepared for future shocks and crises. Many events of the last years have been wake-up calls. Our lives have been disrupted by a pandemic, war has returned to Europe, and extreme weather phenomena are the new normal of climate change. Europe is realizing that the major crises of the past years are neither isolated nor transitory ones. Instead, they reflect deeper fault lines and tectonic geopolitical, climatic, and technological changes. And in the face of these changes, we have often simply reacted. So we need to do more. We need to change our mindset. Preparedness must become part of the underlying logic of all our actions and address the full spectrum of threats and risks. And let me give you some examples. First, as I said, there's climate change and its effects on our lives. Today it is vital to monitor, for example, our forests from the sky, because in a blink of an eye, a spark becomes a blaze. Or take the hybrid attacks and the many different forms they appear. Disinformation, the cynical weaponization of migration, cyber attacks, sabotage. One click can switch off power grids and plunge whole cities into the dark. Or take the economic risks we face, such as the supply chain disruptions. We have broken free from the chains of our dependency on Russian fossil fuels, but now we need to reduce our other harmful dependency on other items. And as a fourth example, you have military risks, of course. Putin's war in Ukraine is the single biggest threat to our security. This year, Russia's defense expenditure is in the process of overtaking the collective amounts of all European member states combined. So we need to step up our efforts, knowing that preparing for the worst can help preventing it from happening. And given the scale of these challenges, we need to work closer together and make a difference as Europeans. Being adequately prepared for major threats requires working in a whole-of-government approach. That is the term, dear Sauli, that you are using in your report. And we've put it exemplary here on the screen. This means the ability to use in a concerted and coordinated fashion all the necessary tools and resources of public policy, mobilizing authorities at all levels, national, local, and EU level, according to their different roles. But this also requires a whole-of-society approach, therefore engaging the private sector, civil society, and citizens. In other words, preparedness cannot be built in silos. Instead, preparedness requires interaction. And this will be at the core of the Preparedness Union strategy that the new Commission and the new HRVP will present. Dear Sauli, I want to thank you personally for the excellent cooperation during the last month. Your work has already contributed to the political guidelines of the new Commission and to the mission letters of the commissioners for the next mandate, and it will, of course, guide the work of the whole Commission in the years to come. I hand over the floor to you, Sauli. The word is on your side.
Thank you, Madam President Ursula. I appreciated greatly when you placed me as your special advisor to prepare this report. I'm glad today to present it to you. And in the same time, I want to thank you, thank those many experts who have dedicated during these 6-7 months to help me, both from the Commission and the External Action Services. They have supported my work a lot. I would also thank High Representative Borrell and his team for their cooperation. In addition, a broad outreach of numerous Europeans representing different member states, public authorities, private sector, academia, civil society, and other stakeholders provided a nuanced understanding of our current level of preparedness and a clear message that we can and must do more together as the EU. I hope this report will provide useful analysis and recommendations to you and your team, and I wish all the best for the next years.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Let's have one for the photography.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank
well
you.
done. You take.
Thank you very much. We will now take a few questions with the President before moving to the full presentation of the report by President Niinistö. Jorge.
Jorge Valero with Bloomberg here. Two questions. First, for the President and for Mr. Niinistö. An earlier draft or version of the draft included the idea of an intelligence service that could gather its own intelligence, its own intel. And the idea was well detailed and explained how to gradually reach a stage. That idea has been watered down to intelligence cooperation in this final draft. In the past, this idea met with resistance from member states. Commissioner Avramopoulos spoke about the deep state against further intelligence cooperation or even an EU agency in this regard. So I don't know if you could explain why this idea is not included in the final draft. And for the President, given the sophisticated threats from hostile actors, do you think that the EU institutions and the EU as a whole can be well protected without having its own intelligence service when member states agencies prioritize their national interest and then maybe the EU as a whole?
Thank you, Jorge. As I mentioned, we will now take a few questions for the President, and then we will have a full presentation of the report with President Niinistö, so he will answer questions after his full presentation.
President. Yeah, because the main actor today is Sauli Niinistö, so you will have the full presentation of the report. This was just the handover. And then, of course, you will have the possibility to ask whatever question is necessary to be answered.
Yes.
So we have already agreed to strengthen the EU Intelligence Center in the Strategic Compass. And we all know that intelligence gathering is primarily the responsibility of member states. So I liked very much that in the college, Sauli, you said, I'm not a friend of building always new structures, but I'm a friend of taking existing structures and build on them. And I think in this spirit, we should build on improving the flow of information gathering and intelligence gathering, because what is it for? Is it for that we have the information, it's presented to us that as leaders that we have the information to act accordingly? And when we look at major crises, and we're speaking of the development of major crises and not domestic elements that might be necessary, major crises, if we're not prepared, if we are not alerted early enough so that we can potentially prevent even, we are hit throughout the European Union and cross-border massively. So it's in the interest of all of us that because we protect each other and we stand up for each other in the European Union, we also have an excellent information sharing just to be able to act accordingly the scale of threat and to prevent if possible.
Thank you very much, President. Valentina.
Thank you for the floor. It's a question on finance needs. How do you plan to finance all these preparedness needs? In the report, it is stated that the 20% of the budget should go to the preparedness for crisis, but would you also foresee a common debt instrument?
So, as far as I understand from your words, Sauli Niinistö, in the presentation in the college, that these 20% are earmarking that they should be spent in vain or in view of, for example, preparedness elements, like we do it, for example, with the green transition and the digital transition. So it's not 20% only for one topic, but that we keep the goal, the purpose in mind. In general, what the finances are concerned, of course, the budget is one source, but I think the approach we have to have is the following. We first have to have a discussion. Are there major projects of common European interest? For example, an air defense shield for the European Union. If this is the case, and it's a vast cross-border necessity, do we consider it as a common European project that we want to bring forward or move forward together? And if the answer is yes, then I think we come to the finances, and there are two ways to finance. It's either national contributions or it is new own resources. So in one of these two elements, we have to decide how we move forward. But very important is first the description of what we need, what is necessary, and then have the political will to finance it together.
Thank you. Laura?
Thank you very much, Laura Dubois from the Financial Times. I have a quick follow-up on my colleague's question. You said own resources. Do you believe that also means fresh joint debt to finance defense? And then as a second question, I would like to hear more about these hybrid threats that you mentioned. Some of our neighboring states have also been facing them. How would things like intelligence sharing and the strengthening of intelligence cooperation counter these? Thank you.
So I think I already explored the topic of the intelligence sharing. I think we have to step up because it is our strategic decisions. If we want to take them, we have to take them in full view of what the theater is or what the scenario is that we're observing on the ground and the development that the information and the intelligence sharing brings us forward with. How in detail to do that is a matter, I think, that we have to discuss together with the member states, but that it's in our own interest and the member states' interest that we have a better view on evolving risks and threats. I think is understandable and a common knowledge. And again, whatever financing mechanism you choose, in the very end, it has to be paid for. And I want to insist, there are only two ways to pay for. It's either the national contribution or it is the new own resources for the European budget. There are no other ways to finance future projects.
Thank you very much. We will now move to the full presentation by President Niinistö.
Good luck.
The question and answer.
I read it.